Hello and welcome to a Simon Says Stamp tutorial video. My name is Britta Swiderski and today I'm stopping by to show you some distress paint layering with stamping. So this is using one of the really great properties about distress paints, which is that they're opaque. And so we're going to stamp a couple of layers so you can really see these inks layered on top of each other. So I've picked out 4 paints to use today, and I'm going to use 2 darker colors on the bottom layer and 2 lighter colors on the top layer for a little bit of depth and contrast. For the darker layer, I'm going to be using Chipped Sapphire and Salty Ocean, and for the lighter layer, I'm going to be using Broken China and Picket Fence, kind of all mixed together. So I'm going to start out with this background stamp from Hero Arts. It's the leaf and floral background, and it's one of my very favorite classic background stamps from them. And I'm actually going to start out by using my Stamp-A-Majig and creating a background positioner for this stamp. So I've inked my stamp up with some StazOn ink, and I put my background into the corner on top of my little plastic piece here, and then press down. This definitely doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to give you an impression that you can use later. So I didn't even ink up my stamp that well, but that's okay. I got a little bit on my fingers, but that's also okay. The goal here is just to be able to line up your stamp and know approximately where you want your new stamped image to go. So now you need to clean off your stamp really well so none of this transfers over when we use the paint, and then we can start stamping and creating with our paint. Now I'll be stamping onto some Simon Says Stamp watercolor paper. This is a piece cut out to 4 inches wide by 5 1/4 inches tall, which will fit perfectly on a standard size card. And I'm going to start with my darker colors. Always make sure you shake these guys up first to get the paint nice and mixed together. And then I like to start with my lighter color, just so I don't have to worry about contaminating the tips. And just dab it on to your stamp. You can do this with any rhyme or reason you want. I like to go kind of by each leaf little segment here and paint in those areas. Now I'm going to add some Chipped Sapphire on here. Notice how I'm starting it on my craft mat first, just to get the paint kind of going. And I even went a little bit more over the lighter areas with my darker color, just because this is going to be the dark layer. And now I'm just going to spritz this with a couple sprays of water from my mister, making sure that I got all of the spots covered, and this will help the colors really blend together. You can skip this step if you want it to be less marbleized and less mixed together, but I really like the water effect. And then you can press your paper into your background. I like to use a sheet of paper over the top when I press it down so that I can avoid getting as much paint on my hands as possible, even though you're probably going to get messy during this technique. So now we have this really great background, and I love how it's turning out so far. We're going to let this dry. You can let it air dry or you can zap it with a heat gun. It's always better to let it air dry, but if you're in a hurry, feel free to zap it with a heat gun. It'll just dry a little bit more tacky that way. So now I'll clean off my stamp and get ready for the next stamping while this dries. So our background is pretty much dry, and now I'm going to stick it down to my work surface using some adhesive and just a couple of pieces. And now I can use my Stamp-A-Majig to help me line up my stamping. So now what I want to do is shift it a little bit off to the side in the way that I want my shadow to be. And it probably won't stamp perfectly, but that's okay. So I can put my Stamp-A-Majig down and leave it there. And then I just need to remember to stamp it the same way that I had my little Stamp-A-Majig before. So make sure you match that up. So I'm going to use some Picket Fence, and that'll go down first, and then over top of it, Broken China. And once again, I made sure to mix in the white and the blue so that there aren't any places that are super white, because obviously plain white won't show up very well. So I'm going to spray this a couple times with my mister again, and then remember to flip it in the direction that I planned. and try to line it up with my Stamp-A-Majig. You can also just free form this. You're going to end up with something a little bit unpredictable, but sometimes that's the fun of playing around. And now you have this really great multi-layer stamped background. And the more paint you use and the less water you use, the less transparent it will be. So this is pretty transparent, but you still get a lot of the fun effect of the stamping. And you can add as many layers of paint as you want. You could even add a layer of solid or add some dots over the top or use different stamps, and you can get all sorts of different effects. So this is how you do the layered stamping. Now let's make it into a card. So I stamped this banner and the Adventure Awaits sentiment from the Kelly Perky Let's Go stamp set in mid-tone ink in Passion Flower, and then let that dry, and then mid-tone ink in Navy. And just cut around the outside. And I used the same watercolor paper that I used for the background. And now I'm just going to adhere everything together. As I'm adhering everything down, I want to go around the edges of my pieces with my Chipped Sapphire ink, just to bring everything together and to give it that finished edge. I really like doing this with the paint daubers. And you can use your finger or a paintbrush to get in any tight corners that you might have. And just lay your little banner piece on top. And now to finish everything off, I would like to use these enamel dots from Basic Gray. And this is the blue and the green combo pack. And I'm going to use an X-Acto knife and just place some of these green ones around the card. I also added some metallic decor in gold from Hero Arts to add a little extra bling. And now I think that we have all of our finishing touches. Plus, if you don't like any particular area of the paint or it didn't quite get full coverage, you can easily cover it up with one of these little dots, which makes for a really great embellishment opportunity. So here's the finished card. Thank you so much for watching. And to find out more information, check out the Simon Says Stamp blog, or you can check out my blog at brittaswiderski.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time on another Simon Says Stamp tutorial.